Hello, Synergy friends. I'm still on my last day for my program in Bangkok. So there's still some time. So let's discuss about our humanitarian pause topic in Gaza and why I think we still need to understand the process to reach an agreement on this pause. It's important to discuss this because there are countries that operate quietly behind the scenes, away from the camera spotlight, and yet they play a significant role compared to countries that make both claims but haven't achieved much in resolving the Israel-Palestine conflict. So the story of the 4-day humanitarian pause in Gaza wouldn't have been possible without the involvement of Qatar and Egypt, plus the United States. The process of achieving this humanitarian pause in Gaza didn't happen instantly, but rather through a process that can sometimes frustrate diplomats. This story is detailed in an article by the Associated Press. The title was "How the Hostage Deal Came About. The Negotiations Stumbled, but Persistence Finally Won Out." The article told us that Qatar took the initiative to try to reconcile the conflict between Israel and Hamas just 5 days after Hamas attacked Israel on October 7, 2023. As we know, Hamas' attack on Israel resulted in more than 1,200 deaths. Hamas also captured around 240 people and held them hostage. At that time, Qatar attempted to contact the United States to discuss the hostage situations. The exact date of this initial contact is not mentioned, but it marked the crucial first step in the negotiation process. This communication couldn't be made public. Even within the United States government itself, not many were aware of it. The communication channels were truly secretive. The secret communication channel can be divided into two routes. The communication with Hamas was conducted through Qatar's Prime Minister, Mohammed bin Abdulrahman bin Jassim Al Thani, and through Egypt. From the US, there was Brett McGurk, the coordinator for National Security Council for the Middle East. McGurk spoke with the Prime Minister of Qatar every morning. Meanwhile, the communication channel with Israel was handled by Jake Sullivan, the National Security Advisor at the White House. He also communicated with Israel every day. In addition to Jake Sullivan, there was also Bill Burns, the director of CIA, who had intensive communication with David Barn, the director of Mossad. Why was this communication kept secret, especially communication with the Hamas? Well, because if the world knew that the US was secretly negotiating with Hamas to release hostages, it would indirectly acknowledge Hamas as an entity that must be considered. The US has never negotiated with terrorist organizations, so secrecy became a non-negotiable principle for the US. The first major proposal presented by Qatar occurred in October 12, 5 days after Hamas' initial attack. It involved a request for Hamas to release all women and children held by Hamas, and in return, Israel would release Palestinian women imprisoned in Israel. This proposal was rejected by Israel, but opened the door for future discussions. In the US, there was disappointment because President Biden was under pressure to release American citizens who were also held hostage. So it was important to understand that during the negotiation process, countries like Lebanon and Yemen get involved in the war. Demonstrations were happening everywhere, even in the US and in Europe. Biden tried to reach a quick agreement with Israel, or else other countries would start considering involvement in the conflict. So after repeated communication, Israel finally agreed to a temporary cessation of attacks on the conditions that hostages were released. Hamas seemed willing to negotiate. This was marked by the release of 2 American hostages, Natalie and Judith Brannan. However, Israel still had doubts for various reasons that were causing headaches for the US. The US didn't fully trust Hamas. The US believed that Hamas might be bluffing about having hostages. The US wanted proof that Hamas had American or Israel hostages to exchange for Palestinian women and children imprisoned in Israel. President Biden himself then called Emir Qatar on November 12th, a day before meeting with Joko Widodo, the president of Indonesia. So when Joko Widodo asked for the US to be involved in a ceasefire, the US, Qatar, Egypt were already in the process. During these negotiations, many details were discussed, including the number of days, the number of hostages to be exchanged, the manner of hostage transfer, and so on. So finally, Hamas provided details of 50 hostages to be exchanged for Palestinian hostages imprisoned in Israel. On November 14, after President Biden's intervention, Netanyahu agreed to continue with the agreement, marking a significant step towards resolution because Israel is in it, finally. On November 21, after intense negotiation and bargaining, the final agreement was reached and the Israeli Cabinet of War approved it. This story is very interesting and important for us to know because international diplomatic process often move very slowly and can be very exhausting. It serves as a reminder that behind every agreement there is a story of effort, negotiation, and decisions made far from public eye. Great diplomacy is measured by how much a country's involvement successfully contributes to a positive change or avoid the worst from happening. So diplomacy is not just about how many thousand meetings we attend or how many times we become chairpersons. What's more important is how others perceive us differently when successfully making diplomatic move that earns approval of our countries, even from our enemies. So that's it from now. Hopefully you enjoy this. Until the next episode. Bye-bye.